Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday, not our typical day for Boss Talks, but it is still Boss Talks, and we have a great show today. Charles Thompson, you may have seen him on LinkedIn. He's pretty active, has grown his followership on LinkedIn to be, I want to say, over 25,000 followers. I don't know what time frame he's done that in, but he'll kind of lead into how he's done that, why he's done that, how does that play into his job when it comes to what he does, because he's currently working for Experian. He's been with them around a year, but his lead into sales, which is what he does at Experian, has been a little bit untraditional compared to probably a lot of people. But I think he has a story to tell when it comes to that as well. So I'm really excited to get to know him more and let you guys get to know him more. He's a great guy. And the few times I've talked to him, I've had really good interactions. But before we get to that, I'm your host, Evan Happel. I'm with Community Boss. I work with them selling wonderful software to the multifamily industry. We have the great privilege of helping property managers manage the physical aspects of their community better. Like a boss, we like to say. So whether it's your parking, your amenities, or even some mapping, we got you covered. So check us out. But with all that being said, it's time to bring Charles to the show. Hey, Charles.
Hey, how we doing?
Good. All right. So for those that tried to get on yesterday, we apologize. We had some technical difficulties. Today, I'm having some technical difficulties, such as doing a live show, I guess. But Charles, you are actually on a family trip. So I do apologize to interrupt such a fun time, because he's over in Florida at Disney World of all places, which is fantastic. And I'm so glad you're able to do that and that your job is affording you the ability to do that, because I know for a fact that is not a cheap trip. So, but thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. No problem. No problem.
Yeah. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself for those that have seen you on LinkedIn, but maybe haven't really gotten to know who you are and like your story and how you've gotten to where you are, I think it would be really interesting to hear from you.
Sure. No, I appreciate the intro. Thanks, Evan. So a little bit of background on me. I'm born and raised Southern California. Uh, Lovely place. Funny thing is that in San Diego, a lot of people kind of imagine that everyone there is super wealthy, which, as you may guess, isn't really the case. So I came from a low income family where really finances were always tight for me. That was just the normal day to day for me. I have two brothers, two sisters. I'm the second youngest. So for my family, when people graduated high school, it was really common for them to work. So I happened to play football. So football kind of created open doors for me in a variety of different ways. And I'm a huge sports person, just for the fact that it usually teaches hard work, and it teaches you the beginning stages of how to be on a team, how to interact with other people for a common goal. And I think that's something that is essential for everyone as they get into the workforce. So that was really my starting, my beginning. But another aspect of just being in a low income household is that many of the men in my family were in drug or are in gangs or are doing drugs. And that really would have been the lifestyle that I was in. But at a very young age, I remember 8 years old, I told myself I can't be in drugs or do drugs or be in gangs, because I want to be in NFL. Now, as you all know, I'm on this show today. I'm not in the NFL and I'm not making millions of dollars. But that little small seed and that conviction I had at that age really kept me on the straight and narrow. And that actually helped me be the first person in my family to graduate from college and even go to college. I had a full scholarship to go to Bucknell University on the East Coast and play football. I played running back, and that little small thought process at 8 years old really helped me make that jump to be a first generation college graduate. I studied business. Really didn't know what I wanted to do out of college, but I thought that, hey, What do people do when they have no idea what they want to do? And college is very expensive. You go get a business degree. And so that's what I ended up doing. Got a business degree, played football, loved it. It was enjoyable. I graduated 2014. As I graduated, I was thinking about what role I wanted to go to, whether I wanted to go in business. I was thinking about Teach for America for anyone out in the audience who might be familiar with Teach for America, or I was thinking about going and actually helping students route. So again, I'm a first generation college graduate. My dad wasn't really around in my life. Most of the role models that I had were not really good role models, but I had a bunch of people down in my life, whether it be coaches or teachers, who gave to me. So a big part of what makes me tick is that I like to help people. And some people always ask me like, "Hey, like Charles, you're helping me get this job or on this X thing. Like, why do you do that?" Or I'm sorry that I'm taking so much of your time, but I'm a person that literally like that gets me going. That excites me to see people who were just like me at one point actually be able to walk through an open door, or me help them get to an open door that they didn't even see that was there. And so when I was a graduate from college, I was like, what could I do that would scratch that itch? Well, for me, I had Teach for America on one side as an option, which basically is going to help underserved students and teach them, or it was going to a ministry called Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And what that looks like really is I was going to help high school student athletes who just looked just like me, didn't have any directions, many didn't have a father figure, many were pretty good athletes, but had no idea of how to make the jump from high school to college. I'll give you a really good example. I coach high school football while I did Fellowship of Christian Athletes. What I saw oftentimes is that most of the kids really believed that we were in the 1980s, and they thought that, hey, if I'm really good at football, I'll just go to college magically. Now, in the 1980s, that was a real thing. Maybe if you were really good, you can kind of bypass ACT, SAT, any kind of academic requirements and go to college. And the 2000s, that's not really the case. So I really had to sit down with the parents, with the kids, and really give them an understanding of what that looked like. What do they need to do to go to college? And for many of them, it was very basic stuff. They just were ignorant to the process because their parents didn't
Mm.
go to college, and then their parents didn't go to college. And so what happens oftentimes when you think about inequalities in the world, inequalities aren't always, a cabal sitting in the back room trying to make it harder for different people groups.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, it's just that, hey, my mom and her mom went to college and they understand the certain rules that you learn along the process, and they teach me those same rules.
Right.
And if you don't learn those, then you'll just never know them. And so for me, I wanted to go give that back to those students as a first generation college graduate, some of the basic aspects of like, oh, there should be a time when you take your SAT. For me as a student athlete, as a sophomore and a junior, that's like when I should have been taking my SAT to prepare to go to college.
Yeah.
Now, some of those rules are starting to change now about whether that's there, but when I was coaching in FCA, that was really important. So that was one of the reasons why I chose to be in FCA, and really was a great part of my time there. But one little known unknown fact about me is that FCA was harder than any sales job I've ever had. And I'll tell you that because I was literally going and asking people for money the whole time. Now in sales, this is what you have. In sales, you have I give you X and you give me Y. There's an equal exchange, right? We're
Right.
in the system, historically speaking, we all know that. Well, in FCA, when you're fundraising, I'm saying, hey, you give me money, and that's it, right?
Right.
Like
And
now,
can you explain what FCA is? Probably a lot of people don't know what that means.
yeah, yeah. So FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, it's a nonprofit ministry, meaning that every single dollar that I made was 100% raised. So
Mm.
my salary, all the taxes in my salary, my healthcare benefits, all was 100% raised for me. So what that looked like was I would go to people like Evan, I would go to churches, I would go to businesses, I would go to friends, like, and I would go and ask them, would you support me doing X, Y, or Z?
And
Right.
I've
So
done that.
uh,
I know
it,
what you lived, man.
it's not easy at all. And so what you're having there is that, when I first started, this is what would happen. And it kind of feels like multi-level marketing. It's not multi-level marketing, but it kind of feels that way, or like a financial advisor, or insurance, where you're basically looking at your old Rolodex, people from high school, from college, people and you're trying to make a list. And then with that list, you're trying to figure out who can I talk to and see if they might be interested in partnering with me. That was the kind of idea. So you would go through there, but what was challenging was you connect with your old coach or your old teacher or your old friend from high school, and you catch up, you build rapport. That's the part I love, right? Most of us love building rapport, chatting, talking, and then it gets to the point where it's 11:55 and the meeting's done at 12. And guess what? You haven't asked them anything, right?
The ask.
You need to ask them something, right? And that's the part where if you don't get over that part of asking them, hey, I need X, Y, or Z to do Y. Will you be interested in partnering with me? I had to get over that fact. And I tell you, like, for the first year, I just couldn't do it. I
Yeah.
I would get there and then I would basically send a weak text afterwards.
Right. Well, and let's pause there, because for anybody that's never done this, which I'm probably in the minority of people that have experienced what you've experienced, because I
Yeah.
too was in a ministry situation where I had to raise my own support for a time, and it's very challenging. And I definitely don't think I mastered it.
Mm.
But talk about selling a product of any kind. And it's like, okay, like you said, there's this thing you get as a person. I give you money, you give me the thing. Well, what are you selling when you're doing raising support? You're selling yourself.
Mhm.
And that is all. Well, I mean, there's the thing you're doing. And so there's
Mhm.
belief in that, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have a confidence and a belief that what I'm doing is so important that I even want to do this ask, because it asking people for money is a humbling and is just you're asking them to give you money of
Yeah.
theirs, and they
Yeah.
may not have much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyways, I just want to
Yeah.
like add that caveat,
Yeah,
because
no, I appreciate it, because there was a a a personal crisis, when I first started, because I didn't come from a lot of money, right? I'm a low income guy. That was my background. So now I'm going to people who probably make more money than me. No, they actually did make more money than me, and I'm saying, hey, can you give me money? Now that's very a crude way to explain it, but that's literally what's happening, and
right.
you have to get over that fact and have a belief. And this is what I think is transferable to any kind of job, is that there has to be some level of belief in what you're doing and the importance of it
Mm,
before you can go out there and go talk to someone, right? So if I
right.
don't believe the mission of what my organization is doing, I can't get up and have a straight face and go talk to that person. And that's really, what you have to learn. Okay, like
At
I
least
believe.
authentically.
Yes, 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 yes. You have to have some kind of like belief in there. It doesn't have to be like overwhelming, like cultish kind of belief, but some kind of belief that what you're doing is important. And so what I learned is that, hey, that building rapport is intangible. That's something that's important for anything that you do. That rapport, but in that piece when you're building the rapport, it's more about me trying to understand what's important to that person I'm talking to, that business, that organization, and
Mm,
really try to tie what my organization, FCA, what they were doing and how that fit to that person, what was important to them. So if
right.
I can do that, then at the end, it'd be similar to any kind of sales call, right? You build the rapport, you understand, you discover what's important to them, what's on their list of what they would like to do or not do, and then when you make the ask, you talk about right before that ask, okay, this is how our organization does X, Y, or Z that you care about. Would you like to partner so we can help so we can do that together? Right?
Mm,
Because many times there'll be people who would care about like my organization and what they did, but didn't feel like they had the money or the time or the energy to do it full time.
right.
Right. So they want to do it maybe on a Saturday. They have a 9 to 5 job, they have kids, things like that. So that's really what I learned from FCA. And then the second, the biggest one I think is just the ask. Like in any sales, when you first get and start sales, I think the most challenging part is like you get to the point you want to ask for the sell. And many of us like we're friendly people. Like we like to like talk to people and build relationships. That's easy. But to ask someone for a sell, like all of a sudden, like people start freaking out, at least I did. And getting over that fact helped me like go into a sales call. And I was like, I'm asking them for something that, and I'm giving them something in return. That's easy. Like I
Yeah.
was asking people just to give me money. Like that's it. Like
And it may
that.
not even be their money.
Yeah.
Depending
Yeah.
on the product, it's like the company's money. It's like, I
Even better.
mean,
Right.
what's skin off their back? Like,
Right. Even better. So that was like honestly that was critical for me with FCA where I learned some skills that I think that will always be beneficial to me like down the road. So that was great. I loved it. It was a great job, honestly. But I'll tell you, you know, in San Diego, I'm making probably around 40, 50K, you know, with that
wow.
on my ministry job. So like when I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, like this is tough. And one of the reasons, just for those out there who might be curious of why I made the switch, didn't really have a like it wasn't really like, hey, I wanted more money. That wasn't really the motivation. What really happened was with FCA in general, it's a ministry because kids are in high school where most of the the special time happens is after school. So and that's usually like 4 to 8. So as my family started growing, I started to see that I was getting stretched in ways where I had enough bandwidth to give to both the students, and most of them were like teenagers, and to my family as it was growing, right?
Yeah.
So I realized I had to make a decision. I didn't switch to sales because I thought, hey, sales is gonna, 2x or 3x my income, which it has. But I switched to sales because I was a business degree and I talk a lot. And I thought that maybe that would be some transferable skills, right? That was really what it was. Like the real idea was like, hey, like I feel like I'm at a point where I can't really give to those kids freely
Okay.
because my family is growing and I feel like I'm missing it on that mark. So let's step back and let's see like are there any options out there. And it
Yeah.
so happened that I kind of stumbled on sales because I had a business degree and I thought, well, I think I have some skill sets that will, carry over. And that was really, the moment why I switched to sales in the first place. And just so you know, Evan, my first sales job, everyone listening, my first sales job was selling boxes. So,
Nice.
my wife loves Office. So they sold boxes, they sold paper, and their value proposition was customer service. So my
Was your
wife
boss's name Michael Scott by
it was
chance?
not Michael Scott, but might as well have been. But she would always joke around with me and say, I work for Dunder Mifflin. And but literally the job was I would go door to door, knock on doors, sell boxes. And that was my first sales gig. And I did that from October 2019 to March 20. I did okay at it. Wasn't miserable. And the only reason why I actually switched was because the pandemic, early 2020, March 2020. And I remember like it was yesterday. I walk into business owner's office. We have a good call or a good chat. I went in to go shake her hand, and she's like not interested. And I realized like the pandemic is real. That
Yeah.
there's literally people who are like, please don't visit me anymore. Like, don't come into my office. And at the
Mhm.
time, I was really trying to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because the majority of this company's outbound was just door to door knocking. That was the majority of their actual like methodology at that time. That may have changed since, but in my mind, I was thinking, okay, well, if that's their outbound strategy, what am I going to do if businesses are nervous to have me in their office? And
Yeah.
at that time, I wasn't even sure if the corona was going to be like H1N1 or swine flu, as we all know. Like I thought, hey, maybe it'll go away like Ebola or whatever it might be, but it didn't. And so I think I made it a good switch, but that was one of the reasons why I switched from that job, Evan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you jumped into more of virtual environment. Um, so at what point did you discover LinkedIn and start
Yeah.
making it a part of your toolkit?
Yeah. So funny enough, the first company that I had in sales that was selling boxes, they actually told me about LinkedIn. So I started having more of a presence. But actually, if you go even back further, I had a LinkedIn like in college. So
Hmm.
I had LinkedIn in college, but similar to many people, I had one, had a profile, but never used it. Um,
Well, everybody sets one up and they view it as I need it when I need a job and I need it as a living resume to the
yep,
world. So if they
yep.
want to check me out, great. But getting on LinkedIn, what's the point?
Yep. And I was similar to that. But one thing I would say that I don't know if everyone does, but one thing that was helpful for me is that when you first set up LinkedIn, it gives you an option. And I don't know if it lets you do that after you have a profile for some time. But when you first get set on, it allows you to connect with all your connections on there. So I set up um, my LinkedIn with my college, email because I got
Mm,
in college. So everyone that I was connected to on my email from my college email, it allowed me to connect with all of them, or at
yeah.
least send out a invitation to them. And that's a couple thousand people just right there that allows you to kind of just like most of the social media accounts they let you do that in the beginning stages. So that actually helped skyrocket my connections, right in the beginning. But my first company, they just talked about, hey, like LinkedIn's important. Make sure that you're on there. Make sure that you're up to date. Make sure you have a professional photo. Make sure your profile summary is there. So they kind of gave us a really quick train. So set that up there. Didn't do very much work on it. That was great. My next job, where I was in a more virtual setting, I actually started to need I had a need to start prospecting more. But that prospecting was more virtual because I wasn't going door knocking anymore.
Mm,
And we got leads, but our leads weren't very good. And so I had to go figure out, okay, well, I want leads, but I don't know of any other method to go find leads. So I thought, well, LinkedIn is free and everybody that I can think of is on there to some capacity, right? So that's what I started doing. I was actually at that point outbounding heavily into like the financial advisors, into like the insurance verticals, and all those people are on LinkedIn. And the funny thing about those people, which was good for me as far as um, my spirits, it was good for me at that time because all those people want to talk to you because they're salespeople too, right?
hmm.
Like every financial advisor is like, well, it's like you're selling me, I'm selling you. Every insurance person,
Right.
you're selling me,
You're
I'm
going to
selling
sell me. I'm going to sell you some financial services.
every single time, right? So it was so for my like spirits, it gave me more encouragement to be on LinkedIn because I those people were responding to me, they were talking to me, things like that. And I think for any sales person, like that give and take is helpful. Like when people are talking to you, responding to your calls, things like that. So that's like most of that job I was on LinkedIn. I was heavily prospecting. And I started to understand, okay, well, maybe I should start like posting. But what happened to me was I would get up like most salespeople, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I would try to create a post. I'll be writing one like and it'd be like just in a draft form. And then all of a sudden the day gets ahead of me and it's 11 a.m. I haven't posted yet. Right. And then that would kind of be my normal day to day where I would try to come up with a post and I sit there for 20, 30, 40 minutes, try to come up with a great post, and then the day just get ahead of me. And then it'd be 11 o'clock and I hadn't posted yet. So I started to get better at, okay, well, maybe I should like take notes and maybe like schedule it that way. And that was kind of like really the extent of my posting at that job. Well, fast forward to like this year, I'm almost at Experian for a whole year. Experian actually has another training that they have called social selling that every salesperson goes through. And um and a part of that training, they actually give you a scheduler that helps you schedule like all your posts. Now, LinkedIn, if audience doesn't know this, LinkedIn now has a scheduler as well.
Yep.
So that's helpful if you don't use it. But it was all kind of like all this was converging at the same time. So like Experian gave me a scheduler, and I was starting to actually come to my own conclusions about how I saw LinkedIn, like how I want to justify my presence on LinkedIn. What's my role on LinkedIn? So in that time, like, as I got the schedule, I was started thinking about, okay, well, what is the purpose of LinkedIn? Like, how do I want to see myself on LinkedIn? Now, I think many people think of LinkedIn as lead generation, meaning that they want to go on LinkedIn, and usually it's lazy. Usually they mean, I want to go on LinkedIn really quick. I want to make a super quick post, and then I'm going to just get leads just coming in every day, like just all day. And that's usually lazy, and it's very short-sighted.
Hmm.
I don't think of LinkedIn as lead generation. I think of it as demand generation. And that demand generation isn't necessarily for Experian. I love Experian, but that demand generation is for Charles. So when you talk about, like, it's very cliche today and very overused, but you talk about your personal brand.
Hmm.
That's what I'm talking about here. Like when I post on LinkedIn, I'm building a personal brand. So Evan, you mentioned earlier, a lot of people looked at LinkedIn, they set up a LinkedIn, and they, have a living resume. But I think about that. I do think it's a living resume, but I think that living resume is usually through my posts. So you actually, when I create a demand generation, that demand is for Charles, whether you want Charles to work at your company, whether you want you want to partner with a side project to do together offline, or whether you actually want to be one of my clients for my company. But that demand generation for Charles, and Charles happens to work at Experian today. Right.
Right.
So I post so you actually can get a good idea of who Charles is. So, one of my first jobs in college, I worked at Panera, and I remember someone telling me this. I can't remember who, but they were like, "Hey, a lot of people are going to apply for Panera. You want to make sure you put a face to a name. So after you apply, go in and go meet the manager and say, "Hey, my name is Charles. I just applied. Would love the opportunity to work at your at this branch." In a similar fashion, when I post, I want to be able to put a story to a name. So I want you to, when you look at Charles Thompson, I want you to have a story in your mind of who Charles is, what I care about, what's important to me, and just a little bit about what I do, right? Which happens to be Experian today. And I think that for salespeople, I think this is really critical for you to think about. Um, I believe that many times when we are rude or dismissive to individuals, in that moment, we usually fail to see that person as human.
Right.
And you even look at this in a historical sense, right? In any kind of historical tragedy, the people group who uh, was nefarious to that people group, they failed to see that people group as human, right?
Right.
They Human rights were eroded in that time frame. So give you an example, like, I've flown, I fly on Southwest. I love Southwest. Southwest has been struggling the last month or so. I still love them. I love you, Southwest. But whenever I do call Southwest and maybe there is an issue, if something's off, usually, and I get upset or impatient, I usually fail to see that person as a dad, as a mom, as a worker, as a brother, or a sister. I fail to see them as that in that moment.
Mm.
Why is this important? Why is this relevant? Because when I give a story to who Charles is, and I might need to reach out to someone because I have a connection that might need a job, I have a connection that might need a reference, I might need a job, I might want to do business with you. Usually, I get better responses because people see my story behind my brand.
Right.
And again, just to reiterate that, because I'm hammering like super hard on this. It's just like when Facebook first started, right? And when Facebook first started, you were like, "Hey, I haven't seen Charles in weeks, but I feel like I know Charles because Charles is posting all the pictures about his kids,
Yeah.
and I feel like I feel like him and I talk every day, and that's the same idea about why I post and in what I post. So go ahead, Evan.
Well, I was just going to say exactly what you're saying is true because through the pandemic, this was like our only option. And I think that's what poured gasoline on the fire of LinkedIn is that we had these 2 to 3 years of we can't be in person. So what are you going to do? what are you going to pivot towards? Well, a lot of people pivoted towards LinkedIn, not everybody. And even in that number, there's even less that are actually active posting, putting themselves out there, probably due to fear like you had of what am I going to say? What am I going to write down? And what I would say is everybody's got to figure out like their way of doing it. It may not be a post. Maybe it's a show like I'm doing. Like this is me putting myself out there. And because I enjoy talking to people and I like to ask questions and I like to learn new things. And so for me, Boss Talks is a great fit. And for other people, it's making a funny TikTok and posting it on LinkedIn, or it's doing a skit, or it's doing whatever it is. So to me, it's like you got to figure out what you are comfortable with.
Yeah.
And honestly, not everybody's comfortable putting their whole, life story out there, and that's okay. But you can still figure out a way to like convey who you are as a person, even if you don't get super personal, right?
Yeah. No, I fully agree, and I think that you're right. Like whenever you're thinking about a strategy, you need to think through. Okay, well, what am I trying to accomplish, and who am I trying to connect with, and what am I comfortable doing in that process, right? And I think that as you kind of mentioned, like, it like my way, like you look at my posts and you're like, man, like Charles is like super raw sometimes. Like that's a little bit uncomfortable for me. And some people have told me, like, hey, like I'm not comfortable going that route. And that's completely fine. Like you don't necessarily need to do what Charles is doing. But figure out what you want to do. I think LinkedIn is a huge untapped resource for people to connect with other people, right? Like that's what sales, that's what marketing is to connect with other people, whether you're an individual or an actual company. I think those are two like resources that are two individual groups that have not really tapped the whole resource of LinkedIn. I think companies like hugely underutilized that companies are on LinkedIn and connecting with their buyers and also with individuals. It doesn't necessarily need to be sales, but that's a huge aspect that I think that is untapped. And what I'll say to kind of add to that is try to figure out a couple things that you like buckets that you want to actually post about if you start posting. So for me, that looks like family, like legacy is very important to me. That looks like financial education. That's very important to me as a first generation college graduate. Looks like sales because I'm a salesperson. So I post about that. And then that means experience stuff because I work at Experian and I want you to know about what Experian does. And so those are my few buckets that I usually post about. So if you look at my posts from the last month, it would generally be somewhere in that bucket that of things. And so when you do that, now you start actually getting a process in place. And then as you break down that process, you start saying, okay, all right, well, what do I want to post about? If you want to do the posting route, well, start brainstorming, start doing some batch processing and saying, okay, this is what I want to post about. Use a LinkedIn scheduler. For me, when I talk about like very raw posts, the scheduler helps me a ton. Why? Because sometimes I scheduled that a month ago. So I kind of forgot that it was even going on. There is a little bit of paralysis by analysis when you're typing it in real time. I believe, right? But when I schedule, because I'm just so you all know, I'm scheduled for like the next month of posts, right? So sometimes I forgot completely how raw and emotional that post may or may not have been because I just scheduled it like a month and a half ago already. So whatever you want to do, that helps in that process. Last thing I'll say on that note, when you think about processes, I think that posting is important, but I think even more important and it's easier to do and start is commenting on other people's posts. So LinkedIn really awards that. The algorithm really awards that. So if you're a salesperson, you're just getting started and you're like, okay, well, how do I get started? Or even like marketer, any like revenue generator in your company, like find the people in your industry that are have a following to some capacity. Their voice is trusted to some capacity. Click the notify bell on the top right of their profile. So you're notified every time that they actually make a post. And then when they make a post, you be the first person to comment on their post, right? And what that means is, so you know, and this is why I'll tell you this because I suck at commenting. This is the easiest, but it takes the most mental energy because it can't be like, I totally agree. Good job. Great
Yeah.
post. Those are super lazy posts. And if you look at my comments, that's kind of what I do. Really good job. I do a really good job of lazy comments.
Yeah.
It's hard to actually have meaningful like feedback in to those posts. But what you'll do if you can do that consistently, you'll become a thought leader in that person's actual audience, right? And so you can almost hack their audience, and that's a super easy way to kind of build a tribe, as it were, of people saying, "Oh, Charles is just as thoughtful as you fill in a blank of this person in your industry." And I think that that's an easy way to start because we love comments. I believe comments is community for our virtual world. If you
Yeah.
look at any kind of viral video, what do most of us do when we see that viral video? We look at the comments and we're curious about what people say in the comments,
It's true.
right? I don't know why, but we just love to do that. So
Yeah.
I'll kind of stop there. If you had anything you want to add on that.
Oh, I mean, I appreciate you making all those points. I fully agree with all of them. And, I've been on LinkedIn quite a while now, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't hesitant to start posting myself. I was very much connecting with people. I have a large number of people I'm connected with, but when it comes to posting, there was a hesitation because just like putting yourself out there on video, which is even more vulnerable, especially live video, there's a vulnerability of being accepted by what you say. And, like anything, if it doesn't get any likes or comments, then you're like, well, what was wrong with my content? You start like assessing yourself and like your the vanity matrix or whatever, like
Mhm.
metrics.
Yeah,
You start like thinking, oh my gosh, well, what's wrong with
yeah,
whatever. So anyways, you almost to a degree got to get past that and keep doing it. And just like you said, it can't be about just you though. Like you need
yeah,
to get out there and be active in other people's content so
yeah,
that they see you as well in their stuff,
yeah,
and not just expecting, oh, everybody just come to me.
yeah, yeah,
That's very
yeah,
important.
yeah,
So one thing I do want to ask you
sure.
is, okay, so for about how long have you been this active, I guess, is first question.
Yeah, so I have posted every day for the last year. Every day
Okay.
meeting
And
from
so do you know what your starting point was versus where you are today when it comes to, I guess, impressions, number of uh interactions with your stuff, whether it be likes or comments? Like what has
yeah,
been the trajectory of that as a
yeah.
result?
Yeah, so I will say that I think you said earlier in the call, I have 25,000 connections. I'm about like 17,000 connections. I wish I was 25,000, so maybe this video will change that. So go ahead and do your job, everyone down there.
Yeah.
But I probably started off around like 8,000, 9,000 connections. So I pretty much doubled there. And my posts, like when I look at the average, my average post like now is anywhere from 10 to like 25. That's like my average post likes. It
Uh-huh.
used to be like anywhere from like 1 to like 5.
Yeah.
So um so um so it's
But you have some that have really exceeded that.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But I just
Yeah.
like to be realistic, I'm looking at it, I'm
Yeah.
like, it's probably
Yeah.
like 10 to
Don't
25
expect all your posts. Moral of the story, don't expect all your posts to get 1,000 likes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a couple where everything works out well and everyone sees it and they like it and it's fun. But
Yeah.
realistically, 10 to 25 is normal. And then as far as I think my yearly I think it's impressions. I think I was like at 1 million for this past year. So I imagine that it was. I don't know what that was. I imagine it wasn't anywhere close. But what I would say again as a caveat to this, the coolest thing about LinkedIn when I first started posting, one of the things that encouraged me was, you can make a post with one like and 100 people can see it,
Yeah.
right? Now maybe not everyone related to it or resonated with it, and just be okay with that because my wife is one of these people. Well, she'll look at it at something, she would maybe laugh at it, enjoy it, and not like it. And I'm like,
And
why
do
didn't you
nothing.
like it? And all my experienced people, I love you all. But some of you guys tell me like, hey, I love what you're posting, but you don't like it. Like that happens all the time. It's fine.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
So just remember when you start posting, not everyone might like people might appreciate it, but may not like it.
right.
That's normal. And
Yeah,
so when I saw that, hey, like 100 people saw this and I got like one like, that's free marketing for whatever company you are at or your
sure.
brand.
And yourself.
And that should encourage you to start posting. Because when I saw it, I was like, man, that's crazy. 100 people saw this. That's nuts. Now, the pessimist in me would be like, well, why didn't they like it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you had to knock that out of your head because
Sure.
that's hard to always manage.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. A million impressions. I haven't gotten there. I'm coming for you, Charles.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
good.
My problem is all my stuff, it's across multiple channels.
Yeah.
So like this is going to Boss Talks podcast, a
Mhm.
page on LinkedIn, but it's
Mhm.
not my personal page.
Yeah.
And so interactions with this isn't benefiting my quote unquote page.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I got my own things to get over
Yeah.
when it comes
Yeah.
to like having everything be about me because I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's just
Well, I'll also tell you, like, I'm the most competitive person that I know. So like I'll share the story real quickly. When my wife and I first got married, our first year of marriage, we played rock, paper, scissors, shoot every day. There was one winner for the whole day. So best out of three, one winner for the whole day. You get bragging rights. Literally no skill involved in rock, paper, scissors if you've ever done it. But that's how competitive we are. We did it every single day. And I say that because one of my first virtual sales job, we had a like a log of how many calls and how many minutes you're on that call. And almost every day I'm first on that because I'm such a kid and I'm so competitive. All I need is a little bar graph that tells me that I'm crushing it, right? And I know everything else will come after that. And in addition to that, for our tool called Seismic, we use for our company, they have a live social tool that allows you to do a scheduler. But on that scheduler, they actually rank who actually like who gets the most engagement on their posts one in the company. Again, I'm such a kid that I'm looking at that all the time. Every single day I look at that. And I'm trying to be number one every single time
so
because
your
for me,
company 100% is using this as something that they really do encourage.
yeah, it's not
Do
just
they
like
reward it? Do they reward it or is it
that's a good question. I don't know if they reward it because I was only a part of the sales kickoff as a new employee. Like I just
okay?
got hired new employee, so I don't know if they do. I know that I've been asked by marketing potentially to talk about LinkedIn at our sales kickoff that would be in April. So I imagine that's because of of what they see there. But I don't want to be like, hey, like, are you asking me this because you see me like as like the leader? But I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why they did ask me. And there, but I'll tell you that in my industry, or in multifamily, but even more narrowly in the bureaus, people aren't posting on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then I would say in our industry, there's not a ton of people posting a ton, but that's because there's only like 1% of people post on LinkedIn in general, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
when
we
I
see the
see,
same people posting. It's true.
yeah, so when I see like, hey, how can I have myself stand apart, like apart from my competitors? Well, I think posting is a pretty easy way where
Right. It's
um,
free.
right? And you may like I bet some people hate what I post. They're like, this is too
They
Facebooky.
still
I
know
don't
who you
like
are.
right like that. And, you know what I mean? Like, and some people are like, I don't get that, or that's cringy, or why'd you say that? That makes me uncomfortable. But that's like a part of me is like I post, and I know sometimes it might ruffle people's feathers. I know sometimes there might be people in my company like, I don't know why you said that. But I
Yeah.
kind of again the schedule helps me like separate from that a little bit and then afterwards, like if someone in my company wants to have a conversation with me about what I post about, I'm fully, open ears for that. Or someone didn't like it, maybe I was wrong. Like I'm okay with that. I think that's the part that's hard to get over. And then the second part for salespeople specifically, because salespeople, it's a challenge not to be a yes person. right?
Mhm.
So I might have to comment on a leader in the industry that might be a potential partner, and I might disagree with what they say, right? And the comments are very like open, like right. And
Right.
I remember having that like personal crisis. Do I say it? Do I not say it? And I said it because I think that like your partners, your clients, your prospects, they will appreciate you being honest with them, right?
Right.
Even if you guys see things on different lines. I think that's the unique part that we have to get over with. Like let's be who we are, whether it's when we post, when we comment, and you will attract the people you're supposed to do business with, the people that really want to do business with you and agree with you or appreciate like the ability to disagree. Like those are the people you're going to attract. But I think um, some of those aspects really make people nervous to
Yeah.
start. And I think for me, I'm still working on that, but I still get nervous to post something. Something I'm like, I don't know if I should say that. Or some things I'm like I don't know if I should comment on that prospect because I don't think he even likes me yet.
Yeah.
And but you just get over that piece because I think it's more important for your brand
Yeah.
to
No, I
post. But
think you're right. I think there's a need for us to be um true to our reaction. Now, don't be a jerk, right?
yeah,
Like there's trolls for sure, and
yeah,
I don't understand those people.
yeah,
But there's also just reactions to a post that are more like, and I think we can't learn from each other unless we learn each other's perspective.
yeah,
And it going back to exactly what you shared earlier, like when there's such a disconnect between a person and a product and the
mm,
person selling the product, like we treat each other less human. And that's the
yeah,
truth between all things. And so
yeah,
like if we could just start treating each other more human, we
yeah,
might be a little kinder, right? And
yeah,
maybe our no to a sale or an ask will be a little nicer next
yeah,
time
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
you could still say no. Obviously, if you don't
yeah.
want the product, you don't want the product, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think you're right. 'Cause I think the hard part, like even for me, I think sellers even forget it. Like you have people reach out to you on LinkedIn, and you're like, not interested, right? And so sometimes you're like, well, maybe I should give that person like a chance to tell me what it is, but then you don't have enough time. And I think that's like what the challenge
yeah,
everyone is like, hey, I can't give everyone my time. Like
right,
some decision makers have hundreds of people knocking on their door, and you don't always have an opportunity to go and listen to the pitch for every single person. So
yeah,
then what comes off is like kind of like crass and rude, where you're like you don't give them even an opportunity to tell you about what could be beneficial to you and your business. And I think time is a hard crunch. And that's why I think, again, anything that we can do as sellers to really help in the process for them to make an easier decision is helpful. Because I have to remember as a seller that um, that person I'm talking to who may be working remote, because many of us are working remote, is inundated with kids, right?
yeah,
You know, if they have kids, pets, they have pets, and then like 7,000 other emails and probably YouTube to some capacity, right? Like they're doing all that stuff right now. Many of us, we get on a virtual, work call. Many of us don't have our cameras on, which probably means many of us are probably doing two or three things at the same time. And that's for your own company internally. So now we're
yeah,
talking about external, where we're actually trying to get someone to make some kind of change in their current process. We have to understand that we need to do all we can to actually set ourselves apart and
yeah,
give them an opportunity to see things differently. And but our challenge is that like I'm literally working against kids, dogs, other
right,
side hustles like YouTube, like ESPN, if the World Cup's on, like whatever. Like there's so many different things going on that are all vying for our attention, and so I have to like be empathetic to understand like some people just like may actually want what I sell, but just don't know it yet because they were distracted by seven other things when I
sure,
talk to them.
yeah,
Right?
that's true. So I have a final question
Sure.
about this, I guess,
Yeah.
and then I have a couple questions and we'll wrap it up. But
Sure.
um so when it comes to being active on LinkedIn, you've seen a great rise in impressions and all the things, activity
Mm.
when it comes to you specifically. How has that helped you in your job?
Yeah, good question. Well, I would say that I literally got my job today by LinkedIn. Like I reached out to my SVP on LinkedIn and got an interview like shortly thereafter. So that's how it actually helped me there. And I think that my presence on there, I don't know actually because I haven't asked her, but I think my presence helped her say yes because she's not super active as far as posting, but I think she's on there.
Yeah.
And then in my job, I've had multiple prospects reach out to me to start conversations, right? And these are like fairly sizable opportunities that have reached out to me. And then also, I would say 8 out of 10 times when I reach out to a prospect, they respond to me. They may not say yes. Many times they don't say yes to do whatever I want them to do, but they'll at least respond to me. So I don't really, it's very rare that I reach out to someone, I just get completely ghosted. Like they read
Mm.
it and don't respond. Right. And even then, I'm still really uh forgiving there because LinkedIn's messaging system we all know stinks. Like
Yeah.
they're like sometimes you can't respond and it's hard to get back to it. Like so we all know that. So like I'm really like I'm forgiving them because there's times where I genuinely want to respond and I just forget because it's just the way that it's all set up.
Yeah.
So like it's very rare that someone just like looks at it and doesn't respond. So sometimes it's like that person just didn't look at it at all, right? Like
Yeah.
you can get it because LinkedIn shows you, but it's very rare. So I think those are the few ways like it's helped me get my job now. And I really think that my presence will, if I ever need a different job, it would help me get a job there. There's people who reach out to me for jobs often because of my presence on LinkedIn. Prospects have come to me to start conversations because of my presence on LinkedIn, and then as well as when I reach out to prospects, like they're more prone to respond. Maybe not yes, but to at least give me some kind of response, which I think also all salespeople want. Everyone out there who are buyers, always you could just tell us no, but we just want some kind of response, and
Yeah.
that makes us happy inside and warms our little hearts.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't ghost me. It's true. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for answering, and I really appreciate you sharing all those uh, insights into like your journey, both personally on LinkedIn, what you've learned, how it's helped you. Moral of the story is find your way on LinkedIn, whatever that is, and be active there because lots of people aren't. And if you are, people will start knowing who you are,
yeah,
and it'll make your job better, but it also makes it more fun when you go to conferences and stuff. There's so many people I've met, quote unquote, on LinkedIn that I then saw in person at various conferences over the last year. And it's just fun because it's like, hey, it's fun to meet you in person for the first
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you've kind of built a relationship to a degree just
yeah,
through the virtual channel.
yeah.
So very cool.
Love it.
Well, Charles, I have 3 questions and then we'll call it a show. So one thing I like to ask is when it comes to building community, we are community boss. So
Mhm.
building community, it's something I personally hold near and dear to my heart because that's something I've done for many years as a career. Up until this point, I transitioned, but to a company called Community Boss. So I just want to know, how do you find it effective and enjoy building community personally slash professionally? Maybe not
Yeah,
LinkedIn. You already do that. So maybe
yeah.
the other side.
Yeah. So personally, I think that like I have 4 kids. They're all under 6 years old. So I think that in that time for other parents, it's just craziness. Like you just want the kids to go to sleep and watch Netflix for 7 hours because you're just
Yeah.
so tired. So I think for me and my wife, we intentionally reach out to other couples and try to like schedule out like time because to be with each other because it's very important for community for us to be with other people. So oftentimes parents of small kids are just so tired that they
Yeah.
just want to just veg out at the end of the night. So I try to schedule that out because 2 things I know that we most parents want to veg out and if it's not in the calendar for many parents, it's just not going to happen. So I try to do that. So we go through like literally like a like on my notes like hey this couple this couple this couple this couple and we just try to reach out and we try to schedule time with them. I just started playing pickleball, and we have like a
Nice.
couples tournament going on. So it got rained out. It was supposed to be last week. We got rained out because California's having some rain. But it's a couples tournament, a $10 buy-in, and then whoever wins gets a date night with their spouse. So I've been practicing for pickleball. I'm not very good yet, but I'm super competitive, so that helps. But that's some of the ways that we try to foster community in our own community.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And then another way to build community is to have someone over for dinner. So if you were to have somebody over to your house for one of these date nights, what would you make for them?
Well, I don't make anything. I can't cook. So whatever my wife would want to make, that's what she would make. And she would usually ask me, and I would say, everything you make is lovely, so make whatever you want. But he usually I really like her like she has a lemon a chicken lemon broccoli pasta that is probably one of my favorites that if we have back in my way, we know a lot of families with a lot of kids. I have four. So sometimes if it's a big family, that's a meal that can feed a lot of people. That's not like going to break the bank. So that's a good one. Her lasagna is fantastic. She has ribs that are also fantastic as well. That just takes a long time in the crock pot. But those are probably one of the three options that I would love for her to make. I'm only good with like cereal and breakfast foods.
Awesome. And then finally, what is your favorite coffee beverage?
Good question. So, believe it or not, community, I only started drinking coffee like a year or two ago. And when I do drink coffee today, I usually only drink it like on my day to day. I drink it at 3 o'clock every day. Like
In the
that's
afternoon?
in the afternoon. And
You're
only
crazy.
reason why I do drink it is because I know that when work is done, I'm probably not going to want to fight my 6-year-old or tickle my 4 and 2-year-old. But they would desire and demand lots of that. So I drink it because I usually want to veg out and just chill after work. And that gives me an extra pick me up. So I just wanted to give you that preface so you all know that I'm not a big coffee person. So I usually like some kind of mocha sugary drink just so I can get the caffeine. But because I don't like coffee that much, I could even drink it black. But I probably would like something sugary, like some kind of mocha with lots of chocolate in there. My wife is more of a connoisseur, but I wouldn't be able to tell you like what's good.
But if you don't quote unquote like coffee, you wouldn't be drinking black coffee.
Well, I drink it because the reason why I drink black coffee is because I feel like, well, they both aren't that good to me. So why do I put like 10 pounds of sugar in this one?
Oh, okay.
So
you're just getting it down. You're just getting it down.
I just down it because I'm like, well, I'm literally like if you look at the sugar like amount, I'm like, geez, that. So whenever I think about it, I'm like, okay, I'll just drink a cup of black coffee because they both don't taste great to me. Well, look, mochas taste good to me, but it only tastes good to me if it's a ton of sugar. I'm like, I probably shouldn't use that much sugar this time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought process there. If that helps.
Yeah.
It's almost 3 here, so I just drank my coffee a little earlier today.
Nice.
But
I would never go to sleep if I did that. I've done that a few times, and I just don't sleep then because the caffeine stays in. I can't drink it late because I won't sleep. The caffeine just stays in my system, and I don't get a good night's sleep. So.
Do you have a favorite coffee?
I'm open to try anything. There's a few local roasters that I enjoy. There's one's called Stumptown. There's a few others.
I feel like
I try to get
I
try to get the beans, whole beans. I have a grinder, but I don't drink a lot of like foo drinks. I drink black coffee, sometimes a splash of creamer, but I like good coffee that I can drink black because if it's good coffee, you can.
That's
what I like about it.
I don't even know enough about coffee, so you could have like 4 cups across, and I would be like, they all taste the same. That's how bad.
I don't think so. I think if you had some good coffee, you'd be like, oh, these are different. I'll go with that one. Yeah, there's some that are fruitier, chocolatey. They're all over the place.
Wow,
so it's kind of like beer. Get all over the place. Well, Charles, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story, sharing some insights into your life when it comes to how you engage on LinkedIn and how that helps you professionally and as a person personally when it comes to your job and everything else. And just like Charles jumped on and did a boss talk, you too can jump on and do a boss talk with me. It would be a pleasure to get to know you and to have you share your passions and the things you're really good at with the rest of the world. So reach out to me, and until next Wednesday, we'll be back to Wednesday next week. Don't worry. It's been Boss Talks, and thanks for watching.